Hi everyone. Guess what? We're here for the July energy update already. I feel like I just said June energy update. Wow, has June flown by, at least for me. I don't know how it's been for you. I hope you've had a good June, that your solstice was, I don't know how to say gentle. I guess I'll just say gentle. Although, I don't know. Mine wasn't. Energetically speaking, it was kind of unlike I've ever experienced before. But it's clearly it is taking us into these new times. Interestingly, what I had brought through previously and now kind of where we're at collectively on Earth since then. But with the July energy update, I want to give a little preface to what you're going to hear. And I don't want to say my channeling has changed. It's kind of gone back to more of its original state about 10 years ago when I went through my lightning bolt awakening and started channeling. How they used to come through was very riddled, very kind of old English, or some of like, I don't know how to call it old English. Sometimes these and thous, but yeah, kind of old English, I guess, but riddled and not straightforward. And I always thought back then it was very Nostradamus-like. And I have pages of this stuff that I've never shared. And pages, literally. And I found some of them the other day where the channels were actually for an individual that I knew through a friend and has kind of, I don't know how else to explain this, but like a high position collectively in the sense of this ascension journey. As a human, okay. What do I mean? As a human, actually, spiritually, I'll just say, speaking, soul-wise, and their journey. Anyway, so there was this language that was being used to speak to this individual, and I'd get done with it, and I'd go, because I would record it, and then I'd go type it up, and I'd be like, I don't know what they're talking about. There'd be a word here and there, and then pretty soon I would kind of go, oh, I think I see, but it wasn't just on the surface easy to understand. And remember, any channeling, it's not, oh, this is exactly what's going to happen and here it is. That's not how this journey works. I don't care what anybody tells you. It's nuanced, it's riddled, there are things that we will not be told. And I personally believe no one has the full story. No channeler, no anybody. It's pieces of things that we learn as we go over time. So anyway, point in this is as I was offering this individual this channeling, it was so riddled. And that's when the whole it's Nostradamus-like kind of idea. And I was like, oh, okay, I kind of get this then. But this individual that it was meant for understood it perfectly. These are pages of things. So anyway, my point in bringing that up is what I noticed in the July energy update is they are going back to that, which is really interesting. It actually makes, personally, I think, makes it fun. Fun in a way of like having to understand it from a different perspective versus being like having to use our minds, right? Having to really think about, how does this apply to me? What does this mean? What is my story around all of this information? Because remember, I've always said, take what resonates, toss the rest aside, but stay open. And that we're here to pick out the puzzle pieces that we think resonate with us for our own story. And ultimately, that story turns into our collective story, however we get there. Okay? So anyway, this is kind of where we're at for the July energy update. So, and again, I'm giving you the background because I want you to understand, essentially kind of what you're going to hear and how it's a little bit different. I am going to go through the whole thing and then I'm going to walk back through parts of it to give you a little clarity from what I understand, because I've been working with them for 10 years and I know how they speak. But again, we don't always get all the answers, and I can't always get all the answers. Okay. We get what we're supposed to get, right? But what I will say is July is the start of a very big time. A very big time. What they bring through is the start of this energy. Okay? Remember, I will always say this. I see energy, first of all. Frames up into visuals, things that might happen, etc. But materially, and things are moving faster now, the on the ground kinds of things we'll see and experience come later. Okay, so it's the energy ramping up, and then over time we typically see these things unfold in the way that they are meant to unfold, in essence. So that's what I'm going to do today. Is I'm going to read you fully without stopping and explaining. I'm going to read you fully what they brought through, and then I'm going to go back and I'm going to just highlight some things. And I think you'll enjoy this. I really do. I don't know about you, but I like mysteries. I like to be able to, and things twist and turn with the future, right? We have free will choices, and I have a whole other conversation about that, free will choices, that I need to do a video on. I just don't have time to do all the videos I want to do. But needless to say, we're going to go through the July energy update today, and feel free to comment and ask questions. Again, it's not, when I say ask questions, I'm not necessarily going to be going, okay, let me see if I can get the answer for that, right? You're getting what we're all meant to get at this point through the channeling that I do. And then, of course, I don't know, through your own intuition, which is probably the strongest messenger you have. Hopefully, you're honing that and working on that. You're also getting more information, along with whatever other sources you have, right? Okay, so with that, I should introduce myself, as I always forget to do. I'm Carolyn Zaiser. I channel, I offer energy healing, and I also, along with all my channeling that I do, offer one-on-one mentoring for your life journey, helping you understand your soul's journey and how that is impacting you in your current incarnation, past, present, and future. I also do spiritual awakening mentoring in particular, and I also offer past lives as a specialty. So I'm able to connect in with your past lives and help you understand why you may have the patterns you have in your life, and the reflection of past lives into this current incarnation. So that said, you can reach me at Carolyn@purplerainhealing.com, or better off, go to my website, Purple Rain Healing, where you can see all of my services and also fill out the form. I also offer a 15-minute complimentary consultation if you just want to talk to me and see if I fit and meet your needs. So we can go from there. All right, let's get into this for July already. I still can't believe the solstice has happened. Anyway, I imagine you guys are all feeling kind of the twist of time too. It just feels unreal. All right, like I said, I'm going to read through the whole thing, and then I'm going to go back. I'm going to say this again. Remember, this is riddled. It's also rhymed in some ways. Then they'll stop and they'll give something they want you to do or consider doing. Again, you have free will choice to do what you want to do. And there we go. All right, here it goes. Steer clear of your mind. Pull from the knowing inside. For the mind is a collection of the collective mind, never your deep inside. And then they say, mindfulness, meditation, ramp up a collective group. And I am going to stop here and explain that, because that's a tip. They really want us to up our game with our meditation, our mindfulness practices, and they were showing a picture of this, a picture of us doing this with other people and the power of the collective in meditation. Now, that doesn't mean you have to do that. It also doesn't mean that it's not powerful for you to do it on your own. I'm just giving you what they had suggested if it suits you. All right? Okay, we're going to continue with their channeling. Stars aligning, for the pot is boiling. What has been underground for so long must surface to purge. Anger, rage, divisiveness cannot sit within. This is clearing on a collective and individual level. First, the individual light workers prepared to hold. Now, for those who have not, will purge. Turn the tides. The stars align deep in the cosmos to make room for the divine to rise. But first it must make way, the path cleared by the first of you. Rambling mind and thoughts expand, sides taken when fear begins. What isolated many in their day now brings them to more power in their way, but the release must occur. Astounded, misguided, and wonder on faces to be seen, no more led by what is not their nature. Question yourself and ask, to where are you still beholden? What have you still brought through? Open your eyes. But one must be honest with self and not push away what is a disconnect from the oneness meant for the collective. Until you learn this, that you too still have threads of judgment, division, and blindness. Then they say, July will be the clearing pathway for all to travel through. Stunned, amazed, disconnected too, but you, the one who has shed their skin, sees how this leads to the brand new. Struggle ensues as the collective rise. Differences begin to be set aside. Now, no more lies. The blinders are off, and they will come to with guns and gavels and their own truth. Lit from within, the army arrives. What looks like the end of times is only a blind eye. Opened now for all to see, the corner has been turned as you begin to see the fork in the road. For unlike minds who previously only just despised, and instead now meet they do, aware that their ego has overstayed its journey with them too. Unite, they say, against the forces who wish to turn this earth and those who inhabit it as they wish to rule and make servitude out of thee, oh yes, for all of eternity. Now they shout, and with weapons of light, on the ground too with greater might. Recognizing now too when the ego is shed, and understanding how all have been led to this moment in time, the coming together of all of humankind against what has held you all from the truth of your own inner divine and the power that unity brings to a blind eye. Okay, that's what they brought through for July. And some of you might be sitting there going, I don't have patience for this. Oh my God, just tell me that. Well, this is how it works because it's very powerful when it comes through this way. Okay, there are reasons they bring it through this way. Okay, so what I want to say is I hope, first of all, that you enjoy this kind of collective, what I want to call this, like collective messaging in a way that helps us really, and I'm going to go through each of these individually, think about where we are in the journey. We have a tendency, many of us in the Lightworker community, to think that we have got it all going on and that we know all the answers and that we've done all our work. Nope, that is not true. You will always find something. So remember that and humble yourself, okay? That's part of what they're talking about here too. And we're going to go back now to the beginning, and I'm just going to make a little bit of commentary and then leave you with this as your July message. So, all right, so we're going to go through most of this. They talked about steer clear of your mind, pull from your knowing inside, for the mind is a collection of the collective mind, never your deep inside. So this is the trick of it, right? You know, we've talked a lot about how we get led away from, watching the news or, even, I mean, those are the simple ones to identify. Watching the news, social media, led away from that. But it's even more than, it is even more than that. It's people we're around. It's conversation. It's not an avoidant thing. It's just, it doesn't resonate any longer, right? But again, they're trying to help you because we're in such a time now where we can get pulled back in pretty easily. Well, I don't know if I want to say pretty easily, but there is that attempt to pull us back in, right? And you can feel it. And we don't want to deny that part of ourselves where it's like, oh my God, I just went back into fear when I heard whatever. Even if you're not, you're going to hear things, right? So again, steer clear of your mind, pull from the knowing inside. That's that meditation part. Then they talk about mindfulness meditation. And what that does is, we know it helps us collapse that past, future, fear, anxiety, and we are more able to live in that now moment where that can't exist. All right. Also talking about a collective group, and I already mentioned that. Okay, so then they say stars aligning for the pot is boiling. Now this has to do also with astrology. I just got big chills on that. I've always told you I'm not an astrologist. I know there are alignments going on, and you'll have to find someone else to explain this to you. But I know this because of how they bring through information, and I know there are all these alignments, but there are powerful alignments now during these times. Oh, that it feels like a gauntlet essentially. Okay, so stars aligning for the pot is boiling. Right, the pot's boiling. We're in these times. I think someone said, and so one of you guys might be able to clarify this, and feel free to clarify any of this astrology stuff too, because remember, everybody learns from the comments as well, and I so appreciate them, and I learn from you guys too. But point is that we are in times now that we're the same astrologically, I believe, as the Revolutionary War. So there you go. It's cyclical. We go through these cycles to go through certain parts of our collective or individual and collective journey so that we can remove the things that don't serve us and then continue to evolve, right? So we go through these cycles, kind of like, they just showed a washing machine. It's so true though, right? Okay, stars aligning for the pot is boiling, and that's us. That's the collective. The pot is boiling. The energies are boiling. Earth is boiling. Everything's happening, right? Remember, when I say this is metaphoric, but it is also, you can see how it is literally showing up in many cases. What has been underground for so long, okay, deep in us, must surface. Same with the earth. Purge, anger, rage, divisiveness cannot sit within. Well, so there are ways to go about that and manage those things, right? As we know, as we feel those things. But a lot of people, the vast majority of the collective, you know how this is. We don't know how to manage our emotions. We just act out and our emotions control us. That's that whole conversation I had in a video in the past. So as light workers, as those awakening, we go through this journey of learning how to not be driven to action by our emotions. But the reason we're going to see and are seeing what's out there is because most people have not. Well, first of all, they're not awake consciously, right? I mean, we're all going through the journey, but they're also led by their emotions. And those emotions define them, and then they act from those emotions. And that's why we see what we see. So the pot's boiling. And remember, this stuff is coming up from past lives too. Forget the incarnation everybody's had and the issues they've had to deal with, right? This is past life stuff too. Now more than ever are we in this day and age of humankind, like getting rid of our stuff, and it's happening fast and it's dramatic. Okay, but that's why we see out there what we see out there. Okay, and then they go on to say this is clearing on an individual and collective level. First, the individual light workers prepared to hold. Now, for those who have not, will purge. Okay, so that's this visual that I've given you before. First of all, as we know, those who are awakening are going through this journey first. And they've been giving me this visual for the whole week. And I've mentioned this before, but I wish I could draw little stick figures that look cute. Mine would not look cute. But what they show is this big chasm. Okay, think of like, I don't know, the Grand Canyon. This big chasm, and they show this cliff. And they show on the plateau, all right, at the top, all of us light workers, all right, in a line, holding a rope. It's like tug of war, but all these other people are trying to climb up the cliff, and it's heavier and heavier, and the chasm is all what we're trying to come out of, collectively speaking, right? That most don't even understand what they're coming out of, right? And we're holding, but I'm telling you, it is tough. It is tough, but they are just showing that we are just holding on because we cannot go over and go in with them. But we're holding, all right? And what's happening is those individuals are slowly coming up the cliff one after another. It is not rapid fire, though. We all have our journey. One after another to join in. But remember, when they've climbed up that chasm, think about this as metaphoric or an analogy, they're exhausted. And when they get to the end of the line to help, they don't have a lot of energy. That's the awakening journey, right? We know how that feels. But as we grow in this, we become stronger in many ways, right? Spiritually stronger, hold more light. Our field holds more light, so we are stronger. But anyway, needless to say, we're working hard at that. So I wanted to explain that. And they emphasize the word hold. We are holding. It says, first, the individual light workers are prepared to hold. for those, okay, who are now going to purge, right? So we're holding, all right? Then we go into turn the tides, the stars align deep in the cosmos to make room for the divine to rise. That's the astrology, okay? Again, I won't speak to that because I don't know it. But first it must make way. The path cleared by the first of you. That's the what we might call first, second wave, the early waves of those who have awakened, right? And light workers, well, one and the same. Because I believe if you're going through spiritual awakening and you're committed to it, of course you're a light worker. Anyway, all right, so we then have rambling mind and thoughts expand. Sides taken when fear begins. Okay, this is what we're starting to see now. So there's a lot of confusion, this is what I'm just connecting into, because remember, I'm not with a lot of people day to day talking about these things, but there's a lot of rambling mind, there's a lot of thoughts, a lot of inner kind of whipping up of the mind, and also there is a lot of fear. So the fear drives us to take sides to protect ourselves, right? And that's also the ego part of that, okay? And again, is it any wonder we talk so much in this journey about fear is the most insidious energy there is to all of this, because it drives us into either isolation or action from our emotion. It creates division. It just goes on and on, right? So that's one of the big things, as you know, in our journey that we work on, which is where's that fear coming from? And we work on that. So anyway, what they then say is what isolated many in their day now bring them to have more power in their way, but the release must occur. So what they're saying is this purging has to come out in whatever way that is, and then what's going to start to happen is as that makes way, the purging makes way in whatever way that shows up for an opening for light to come in, and often, I should say, and very much the opportunity for awakening, all right? Now that doesn't mean everybody at once, right? But these are opportunities. What isolated many, all right, the division, now bring more power to them. Okay, because they're releasing, they're getting rid of that stuff, however that works for them, right? Anyway, and we see repercussions of that. If you can stand back and look at what's going on, you see what is happening. You understand it from a more spiritual soul perspective. Doesn't mean it makes it any easier though, right? Okay. Then they said, astounded, misguided, and wonder on faces to be seen, no more led by what is not their nature. So this is the disillusionment, right? Which is going to be coming, is already starting, and I'm not talking just the United States. We're talking all over. And that's already started in many cases. But this is what we are seeing going on in the United States. Again, this is not a polarizing thing. This is just what is happening, right? Many, as I'm hearing, are astounded, misguided, or realizing they're misguided, and they have wonder on their faces. Their wonder on their faces. Just in general, everybody's like, what is happening? Everybody, what is happening? All right? For the vast majority. But then they say, no more led by what is not in their nature, meaning their divine nature. So this is where this starts, okay? This is where this starts, the questioning of my ego, the questioning of my beliefs, my feelings, am I being led by the nose, and whatever it is, this is where it starts. It's got to start somewhere, and I'm telling you now, I believe a vast majority of this happening is designed to blow open the awakening and to make people wake up. Do you remember when I said forced into frequency before the solstice? It was before the solstice. Now this is just coming back to me. We'll be forced into frequency. Well, it's happening. It is. All right. So let's see here. Then we get into more of, then we get into question yourself. Oh, this is a good one. And ask, and they're talking to us, light workers, awakened people, question yourself and ask to where are you still beholden? What have you still brought through? Open your eyes. So they want us to turn the light on ourselves, all right? Because oftentimes what we'll do is we'll get to this point and think, okay, well, I've kind of gotten to where I need to be. And then we take the rest of that jaded, old belief system stuff with us, thinking it's an enlightened perspective. And I'm serious. You gotta really look at things with a fine-tooth comb, because it is woven deeply within our psyche of what we've been enculturated with. So again, they are challenging you, open your eyes. But one must be honest with self and not push away what is a disconnect from the oneness meant for the collective. Until you learn this, you too still have threads of judgment, division, and blindness. I would challenge you all, and I'm doing this myself. It actually started a couple weeks ago, which is interesting, because remember, this is a nuanced journey. It's a detailed journey. It's a fine-tooth comb journey. I would say be super honest with yourself, because you're helping yourself in the collective when you're doing this. The purity of that heart of you, right? Continue to move forward in this journey. And yes, I know we all have opinions and views and perspectives, but when we start really getting down and dirty into the things that we've carried forward that we still think, that we don't even realize we've carried forward, it's amazing what heart space will open up for you to allow yourself to see things in a more pure light, I'll just say. I hope that helps. Let's see. Okay, so, and then they just say basically July will be a clearing pathway for all to travel through. So again, yeah, we know what clearing is, right? Okay, and when you're doing it on a collective level, oh my, mighty, mighty. And also what's going to look troubling, can look troubling from the human perspective. Okay, then they say, stunned, amazed, disconnected too, but you, the one who has shed their skin, sees how this leads to the brand new. So again, this is the collective, stunned, amazed, disconnected, questioning. But light workers, doesn't mean the journey's easy with what all that is happening in the world. When they talk about shedding your skin, is we all have layers, right? But this leads to the brand new. Okay, this is what you've been working on. All right, and this is what the others are going to be working on. But it feels like in a large group, which energetically feels difficult, I'll just say. Okay, so then it says, oh, here I guess this just kind of gives us more to align with here. Struggle ensues as the collective rise. Now this is the energy starting. How we will see this unfold, I do not know, and when. Struggle ensues as the collective rise. Okay, remember, I've always said this is a grassroots effort. Differences begin to be set aside. So what they showed me was a fork in the road, and they showed, this is a biggie. The visual they showed me is like Knights Templar, or like knights. You know how they looked, right? Their outfit. Forget the cross thing, but just the point is this with swords and flags and on their steeds and coming to fork in the road. And this is the differences begin to be set aside. Now no more lies. The blinders are off, and they will come to with guns and gavels and their own truth. Okay, I think that is an amazing statement. The blinders are, I'm going to read that whole thing again. Struggle ensues as the collective rise. Differences begin to be set aside. Now no more lies. The blinders are off, and they will come to with guns and gavels and their own truth. So this is, as I have read this, or as I've understood this is the collective uprising beginning. And I think it's really interesting, come to with guns and gavels, which means lawlessness and law. I just think that's interesting. Again, your perspective on this, please feel free, again, because this is riddled in many ways. Then they say, lit from within, the army arrives. What looks like the end of times is only a blind eye, because we don't see, we don't understand, right? That's the human, journey. We don't understand fully. Opened now for all to see, the corner has been turned. As you begin to see the fork in the road for unlike minds who previously only just despised, and instead now meet they do. Okay, so what has been unlike minds, and I keep getting like every corner of the earth, whether it's on an individual level or whatever, doesn't mean you're going to love each other. It means that you have a common purpose. You're starting to see. And it's not about, oh, they believe the way I do. It's not that. This is very hard to explain. They will believe on the side of light. And that can take different forms. Okay, so let's see, where was I? Okay, hold on. Okay. All right, so I'll just say, unlike minds who previously only just despised and instead now meet they do, aware that their ego has overstayed its journey with them too. So that's that deep look past the ego. You know, what belief systems, what institutions, what are all these things that have created this, like, I'm believing in this and now it's shattering? It's shattering, right? My support systems, whatever it is, right? And that's the overstaying, because the ego collects all of that, right? The ego is the one that protects us in the human form, can cause all kinds of problems if it gets out of control. I find it interesting they brought the ego in, right? Okay, then they say, unite, they say, against the forces who wish to turn this earth and those who inhabit it as they wish to rule and make servitude out of thee. Oh yes, for all eternity. That is what we are coming to terms with and fighting against. And that is it's kind of interesting. They keep showing those knights on horses, the whole kind of Knights Templar idea, or, just that visual look. Okay. And it's not the Crusades. It's not that. They're just trying to express the, belief in and the light worker kind of thing. And that's how they're showing it, right? Okay. So then they say, now they shout, and with weapons of light, all right, or field light, on the ground too with greater might. So now that's on the ground, right? We're waking up. We're bringing that field in to that army, right? The army of light workers. Anyway, on the ground too with greater might, recognizing now too when the ego is shed and understanding how all have been led to this moment in time, the coming together of all of humankind against what has held you all from the truth of your own inner divine and the power that unity brings to a blind eye. I don't think I have to explain that. I think that is such a powerful paragraph. And that's how they ended. So what I got out of this, and I don't think I have to explain anything more, is this whole collective uprising. It's not all oneness and light, but we must part and clear the seas before we come together. And we are responsible for looking at ourselves and for holding the line. Think about it. Think about tug of war, but there's a cliff. If you get pulled onto the other side, you're going down that cliff, back into the chasm where everybody's coming from. Okay? We're not going to do that. That's not going to happen. But this is the arduous time. This is where we are called to action, to look at ourselves, to continue our journey, continue to hold. Okay? Continuing to hold. So I thank you for everything you are doing in your own individual journey, in what you're doing for the collective, in the people that you meet and know and greet, in the small little things you do each day. Because our time has come. Oh God, I just had a huge wave go through when I said that. Whew, I have huge chills. Our time has come. Okay, we've been preparing for this. Now, this is not a one-night show, right? We're in this for the long haul. So stay strong, balance your life out, take time for yourself. Be around others of like mind, love those who aren't of like mind, and keep the light on. I hope you've enjoyed this message today. Again, check out my services at purplerainhealing.com. I hope you have a wonderful July. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you in the next video.